Okay, so I'm just going to pick up for 10 minutes really about the detail about this travel planning forum. I don't know about you, but I'm quite excited about the whole prospect here. And picking up on what Steve said, travel planning may have to change. Travel planning as a profession, as a discipline, may not be the shape it was at the end of the 90s when it first really hit the UK. It may not be how it served new developments during the course of the early 21st century. But what's good about travel planning and about the skills of the people within this sector is that they are very flexible. And in order to meet some of the major logistics challenges, the major investment challenges, the challenges of less resources, both for public and private sector, to play with, actually, travel planning has got a clear role to play. But it's about moving with the times. For all of us, we have this challenge of changed priorities ahead. And what we want very much this forum to do is to actually give chance for members not just to share their good news stories, not just to talk about best practice, but also give a real forum for innovation. This marriage between logistics and transport, this blending of skills between freight and people planning is absolutely vital if we're going to achieve the kind of business efficiencies that government and the economy is actually forcing us to make. And travel planning, if used wisely, can actually make a fundamental difference to the way an organisation behaves and the way an organisation measures its bottom line. So what is the Travel Planning Forum going to offer? Well, first of all, I believe there is a strong vision. There's already a committee formed of about 10 to 12 people that are really committed to making sure that this particular discipline actually pervades and works well. There is a future for sustainable transport. If we read what the National Planning Policy Framework says, for example, and some of you may agree with it, some of you may say, you know, I've got problems with it, but it does say that there is a presumption in favour of sustainable development, not a presumption in favour of development full stop. And therefore, if any development is going to be truly sustainable, then its transport kit and the way the transport system interrelates has to work well. The other reason that I think we've come a long, long way is that if anyone has picked up the CILT vision, this is Vision 2035. I think there's still some copies outside. If not, we can get one to you. But Vision 2035, which is the report on the future of logistics and transport in the UK, so something that CILT brought out recently and was used at various party political meetings in some of the fringe events. What's interesting about this is that sustainable transport and travel plan thinking actually pervades it. It's not, there's a section about green travel in the corner. It's around making sure that these kinds of wider skills, it's not even travel planning, it's more around business efficiency and business working well, underpins a lot of what's being said here. A number of organisations in the UK have already made this wedding day happen. Transport for London are a really good example of that. And when we hear from Rachel and from Sarah about some of their experiences on the ODA panel looking at temporary travel plans for the Olympic and Paralympic Games, one of the conclusions that TfL have come to is that in order to really manage London during next August and September is going to be around having equal emphasis on people movement and on goods movement as well. TfL historically have actually been working quite hard at that in terms of their delivering and servicing plans and the way in which the planning process doesn't just look at the way commuters get to work, but look at things in a much broader sense. But I think the CILT as an institute is really well positioned to make this marriage happen and almost do a bit of speed dating here, okay? It's bringing the wedding day forward because it's really important that when we talk to a business, any organisation, both those aspects are dealt with in the same conversation. And this is just a simple extract from that vision. It says, government must recognise that economic recovery can only be achieved if sufficient capacity can be released or created. This needs behavioural change as well as additional infrastructure. And the second point, the logistics and transport sectors should take the lead in promoting a reduction in both freight and passenger traffic by supporting alternatives to travel and so on. So the marriage is there in black and white. It's in the key recommendations right at the front of this document. So I believe we have a clear missive and clear permission to try and work with professionals in a much wider way than we've done before. One of the really encouraging things is when the Travel Planning Forum call went out, who's interested, about 1,200 members registered. The Forum Committee has been established probably about 6 to 9 months, but we wanted to really think about how we positioned ourselves in the marketplace. And the reason for that is that we do want to work in harmony and work actively with the other professional bodies. So Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation, Royal Town Planning Institute, for example, have their own angle on this particular issue. Also, there are professional associations like Act Travelwise, and we've sat down with them and said, actually, what we want to do is to actually permeate this message wider. We want to help stuff that you're doing and is in your domain. We will cross-promote it. We will support you. So what you will not see is this Travel Planning Forum duplicating other travel planning events that you can go to anyway. This is around looking at some of the gaps. And the key gap is this bottom one, business solutions and efficiency. Just to give a couple of anecdotes of what that means. A project I worked on a couple of years ago, looking at how through getting a travel plan really embedded within a local authority, resulted in a predicted savings bill of £275,000 over 3 years. Now that's the equivalent of probably about 10 public sector jobs. And in terms of the business case, it actually allowed that local authority to take on full-time a sustainable travel manager to make sure that those transformation things actually happened. Even if we go down to a very, very small example, with the Olympics work that a few of us are involved with, what we're discovering is that it's a lot of effort for a lot of organisations to run around for what is in effect a couple of months next year. So what we would really like to see from them is some step changes that allows them to actually plan differently in future. And a couple of my customers have already noticed that they need to consolidate all of their telephony and comms. They've got different departments with different providers. So you've got different people doing teleconferencing from doing the video, and they need to consolidate. And even as low down as that different departments have different sandwich people that deliver different sandwiches at different times of day in different vans. So there's all sorts of opportunities at micro and macro scale for us really to make a difference and improve business efficiency. That saves money. So what's happening next? Well, we have a 2012 action plan, and that sets out what the Travel Planning Forum is going to be doing. And we've broken that down into things like policy influence, events like this, e-learning, and other professional activities. So we're not just going to be focusing on doing things just like today. The next event, having said that, will be on the 2nd of February in Bristol. That's supported by the Highways Agency. And what we're doing there is we're going to look very much at travel plans and the planning process, because that is something which has kind of faded a bit into the background. A, because we know that a lot of skills in this area have moved on, both from public and private sector. We also know that we're in a bit of a vacuum because the National Planning Policy Framework is up there in the heavens, and we've got to kind of deal with the here and now of planning application X, and is what they are proposing good enough? So we're going to be revisiting that with a series of speakers, and the Highways Agency is supporting that. We are also looking at helping with the Olympics agenda, and therefore a couple of events in London around thinking freight, thinking people. And this is really around the marriage between the people side of the games and also the freight side of the games, allowing TfL to promote some of their new products that are coming out next year, including a freight toolkit for planning for the Olympics. We're also trying to support up-and-coming rising stars, and we are working with graduates, MSc students, that want to move into this area. and actually helping them hone down the subject matter that they're going to look at. So one of the specific topics that's being studied by a girl up in Manchester is on station travel planning, and particularly the role of taxi share. And can taxi share actually work? And we're going to be reflecting on Milton Keynes, but also looking at general application. That's something once she's finished, she will be producing something that we can actually use as a position tool, executive summary kind of thing to get out in the industry. So we are not sitting in a travel plan silo. We are forming relationships with a lot of the other forums like Strategic Rail, etc. At the end of the day, we see this as a really, really exciting journey. We want to see these kinds of events filled with those people that want to develop, that know about travel planning, but more importantly, with those people from these other professional sectors where actually travel planning done in a little bit of a cuter way could actually really, really help them. So in conclusion, your input, there's my contact details. You've been motivated to come today, so thank you very much. What we'd like is ideas from what you would like from this forum too. And then myself, along with the committee, can actually try and put those plans into reality. Thanks for listening.